I am installing electrical service to detached garage. My house currently has two 200 amp panels that are grounded to the hot water heater pipe in the attached garage. Service comes to house underground to a CT metering cabinet and then splits to the two panels. Power company has looked at the setup and says I can install a service disconnect next to the CT cabinet for the service to the detached garage, and they will make the tie-in to their service wiring. My question is in regards the service disconnect. It is my understanding that I would ground the detached garage service at the new disconnect via ground rods and will run separate ground to detached garage and separate neutral and grounded panel. First, does this sound correct? Second, by doing this, am I creating any grounding/bonding problems with the existing two 200A panels that are grounded to the water pipe? Third, am I missing any other requirements in regards the new service? Side note, house was built in 76.
Hello and welcome to Just Answer. My name is I will be happy to assist you with your electrical question. 1. The feeder circuit to the detached garage must be a 4-wire circuit comprised of 2 hots, 1 neutral and 1 equipment grounding conductor. 2. At the garage, you will require a quantity of 2 8-foot ground rods spaced a minimum of 6 feet apart. The grounding electrode conductor will land on a separately installed equipment ground bar at the garage subpanel. 3. At the garage subpanel, the neutral must be isolated. Therefore, do not install the green main bonding screw or a main bonding jumper strap at the subpanel neutral bus bar. On any subpanel, only white neutral wires will land on the neutral bus bar. All bare copper and/or green ground wires will land on a separate equipment ground bar inside the subpanel. 1. Ground and neutral are only bonded together at the main service disconnect and never meet again in a downstream panel board. If you have any additional questions, just let me know and I'll be glad to answer them for you. Otherwise, don't forget to rate me before you log off. Thanks. Kevin.
Thanks for your response. Just as a follow-up, I want to be clear on one thing. Your number 2 response says install the ground rods at the garage. Do you mean the detached garage? Why would I not install them at the new service disconnect next to the CT cabinet, approximately 30 feet from detached garage, and install jack there? Or can it be done either way? I thought the code read that the first service disconnect means is where this should happen. Thanks again.
1. Yes, install 2 ground rods at the detached garage. Detached buildings always require a grounding electrode when installing a subpanel. 2. Your service is already grounded at the main service disconnect.
Okay, thank you. So with the service disconnect that I install next to the CT cabinet, I will also have to make sure that the EEC that I install to the detached garage is not bonded to the neutral at this point. Am I correct?
1. Is the CT cabinet your main panel for the home that contains all of the breakers and also contains the utility meter, or do you have a sub-panel for the home which contains all of the breakers? 2. How do you currently kill all power to the home? Either a separate disconnect switch or a main circuit breaker?
No, the CT cabinet sits next to the meter. There is no separate disconnect. The main breaker in each of the 2 panels for the house are the first disconnecting means. For the detached, I would be adding a disconnect circuit breaker next to the CT cabinet as the first disconnect means for the detached only. Then run underground to a main breaker panel in the detached garage. The power company would essentially be making another tap off the underground service conductors where they enter the CT cabinet. Again, the existing two panels are grounded to the hot water heater.
1. Okay, then your two panels are both configured as the main service disconnect via each main breaker. Therefore, neutral and ground are both bonded together in each panel via the green main bonding screw or a neutral jumper strap at each neutral bus bar. 2. At the new breaker garage disconnect, neutral and ground will be bonded together since this will act as a service disconnect. The garage panel will then be configured as a subpanel. The EGC will be bonded to the neutral at the breaker disconnect. Neutral and ground are only bonded at a service disco and never downstream. 3. Your water heater ground does not sound code compliant? Do you have a city metal water supply pipe with a meter inside the home, or are you on a private well? 4. Are the home water supply lines all copper that originate from the water supply system, or do you have some PEX pipe? 5. Do you have at least one 8-foot ground rod installed near the CT cabinet?
I understand your response, and that was what my line of thinking was. I am on city water with copper lines. There is no ground rod. House was built in 76, so maybe it was code compliant for that time.
Thanks for confirming. 1. If your water meter is inside the home and the underground city water supply pipe is copper, then one grounding electrode conductor should have been installed from the neutral bus bars in each panel to the street side of the water meter and then jumpered back across the water meter. City underground copper water pipe is the primary ground. 2. A home should also have had at least one 8-foot ground rod installed at the exterior meter cabinet. If the ground resistance is greater than 25 ohms, then a second ground rod spaced a minimum of 6 feet apart from the first ground rod should have been installed. The ground rods at the service are considered as the supplemental ground. 3. Your water heater pipes are bonded. They are not grounded. Code requires bonding of the hot and cold copper water pipes at the water heater. If the water heater is gas and has a black metal gas pipe, the gas pipe is also bonded together with the two water heater pipes. Once again, this is only a bond. 4. Since the city metal water supply is not properly grounded and there is no exterior ground rod, the home is not properly grounded and is not code compliant. The ground rod grounding electrode conductor will also land at both of the neutral bus bars in each panel. However, you need to confirm this with your local code inspector, as some inspectors also require the ground to land at a neutral lug inside the meter cabinet. In fact, I've had some inspectors that required the grounding electrode conductor to land at the meter socket cabinet neutral as well as at the panel neutral bus bar. Local codes will always take precedence above the National Electrical Code. 1. The NEC has always required a primary and a supplemental ground where available. 1. Here is a link for a city metal water pipe ground example. https://images.search.yahoo.com/search/images:_yield equals A2KLFS7NP5 ba9 TIMX5 zneo:_lu equals x3.bmjb0ag5zbgnvbg8dim.cwmxbhc0 P equals NEC plus water plus grounding plus diagram and FR equals UFT hashit equals 2 and IRL equals http://2f%2f%2f4%2f3%2f2f3%2f9%2f41350919944932344.jpg and action equals click 2. Here is a link for a ground rod example. https://images.search.yahoo.com/search/images yield equals a2klfs7np5ba9 tix5 equals x3 P equals NEC plus water plus grounding plus diagram and FR equals YFT hashit equals 38 and IRL equals HTTP%3A%2F%2F www.icmweb.com%2 sites%2 feekmweb.com%2 files%2 uploads%2 F2005%2 F10%2 F510 17 fig1.jpg and action equals click 3. Shown in the picture below is an example of a gas hot water heater that is bonded at the 3 pipes. There is no grounding electrode conductor that originates to the panel. This is only a bond at the heater which is code compliant. 1. Here is a link from Mike Holt, who is considered as the NEC guru in the United States. This discusses bonding and grounding. https://www.mikeholt.com/instructor2/product/pdf/12924488885sample.pdf.
Thanks for the links. I have been to Mike Holt's site in the past. One last thing in regard service disconnect. Since there is no ground rod there, I will need to add at least one and run check to it correct. I'm going to double check my existing panels to make sure I didn't miss anything and may have to install ground rods there as well. One last thing. The water meter is at the street. The hot water pipe bond wire is connected to the neutrals via a split bulk connector inside a wire trough above the panels. No gas service at the house, all electric. Hot water heater is right next to the panels.
1. The water cold and hot copper pipes only need to be bonded since the water heater is electric. 2. The copper water pipe that enters into the home should have been grounded back to the neutral bus bar. Even though the meter is at the street side, the underground water supply pipe is considered as a grounding electrode. 3. I recommend to run the existing grounding past your local electrical inspector. Local electrical codes can vary widely across the United States. I recommend to install a ground rod at the meter socket area and connect the jack to both of the neutral bus bars at each panel. However, the local electrical inspector may also require the meter socket neutral lug to be grounded. 1. Grounding electrode conductors are not allowed to be spliced unless using irreversible compression connectors or exothermic welding. Jacks are normally one contiguous run and do not contain any splices. Jacks always land directly at the neutral bus bar and/or at the meter neutral lug.
Okay. Thank you. My panels are on the opposite side of the garage to the meter and CT cabinet. The ground rods I install at the CT/meter area is what I was thinking would be used for the detached garage service disconnect jack. I may have to go to the other side of the garage where the panels are located to install a ground rod for the existing panels if needed. Do you see any issues with this? I'm going to remove the panel covers and see if there is any jack connection at the neutral bus.
1. If I'm understanding your application correctly, you have a CT meter cabinet where the utility meter is installed on one side of the garage and there is no disconnect switch located in the meter cabinet. Is that correct? 2. And on the other side of the garage is where the two main panels are located and you can kill power to the home only at the main breaker on each panel. Is that correct? 3. What is the approximate distance from the exterior meter socket to the main panels? Greater than 4 or 5 feet?
Approximately 25 feet.
Okay, I figured it was greater than 4 or 5 feet. 1. Unfortunately, shame on the electrician and double shame on the local electrical inspector that approved that installation, as it is a code violation. Here is the NEC article for disconnects, 230.71a, 1. Readily accessible location. The service disconnecting means shall be installed at a readily accessible location, either outside of a building or structure or inside nearest the point of entrance of the service conductors. 2. Most electrical inspectors will typically allow a maximum of 4 to 5 feet at best where the service conductors penetrate through a building wall for the disco location. Your disco is 25 feet away. When the home was constructed, there should have been either a fused or a circuit breaker main service disconnect switch at the CT cabinet or installed adjacent to the CT cabinet. The reason for the disco location is in the event of a fire. Many firefighters are not allowed to pull the exterior meter to kill power to a building when there is a fire. Firefighters do not want to search the premises for a main disco, as they want the disco within a maximum of 4 or 5 feet of where the service conductors penetrate through the wall from the meter socket. 3. I really recommend that you contact the local electrical inspector to the home and have them evaluate the existing grounding and disconnect issues. 1. Here is a link on the disco location, https://www.acmag.com/section/system/installing service disconnect.
Okay. If we're to correct or have this corrected by someone by adding a disconnect next to the CT cabinet for the house panels, my jack would be at the same location. Would my 3-wire service wiring to each of the panels still be adequate? My thought is that they are considered main service panels, and that the neutral to ground bond is still left intact at the panel and the 3-wire is still adequate. Sound correct?
1. If a disco is installed at or near the CT cabinet, that is where neutral and the jack will be bonded, the 2 garage panels will then need to be reconfigured as 2 separate sub-panels where the neutral bus bars will be isolated. 2. The use of a 3-wire sub-panel feed without an equipment grounding conductor was code compliant up until 1996. Since your home was built in 1976, you should be grandfather in, but that is up to the local electrical inspector. Since 1996, all sub-panel feeder circuits for a 120-240 volt service require 4 conductors. E.2 hots, 1 neutral and 1 equipment ground. If the 2 panels were connected to the CT cabinet with metal conduit, then the metal conduit acts as the equipment ground and a separate equipment grounding conductor would not be required. 1. Neutral and ground are only bonded at the main service disconnect and never downstream. If bonding neutral and ground on a subpanel, the equipment grounding conductor now acts as a dual neutral path, which is a code violation. Thus the reason that subpanel metal enclosures are always isolated from the neutral bus bar. 1. Here are 3 good diagrams showing where a subpanel neutral to ground bonding would be a code violation. 1. I don't like providing bad news to my customers, but as a licensed electrical contractor for 31 years and as an adjunct college electrical instructor and a former electrical inspector, it is part of our ethics and licensing to provide NEC code compliant answers and/or code compliant recommendations to the customer. I hope you understand.
Definitely. I appreciate your excellent advice. I have a good grasp on what is needed for the new service to the detached garage. It was great to confirm with you. Now I will need to work on making sure the house gets up to code. Thanks again for your assistance.
No problem, glad to assist. Yes, get the home up to current code as much as possible. Thank you for the positive service rating. Much appreciated. If you have any other questions, just let me know. Take care and have a great weekend. Thanks again. Kevin.
If you have a home improvement or appliance question and want to chat with an expert now, visit justanswer.com/ythi.